Awesome. Thank you.
And so you know if anybody's trying to come in?
No. Just like one of my glasses on. You say no, no public. Okay, great.
No.
All right. Well, welcome to the Human Rights Committee meeting, February 15th. And as you guys all know, Tina was had to go out of town unexpectedly, so she asked me to facilitate tonight's meeting. So we'll start by taking attendance. I know that obviously Tina's not going to be here, Finn is not going to be here, and I think Marlene is also out of town.
And is anyone?
I did not know tonight.
And what about Keith? Because he's supposed to be doing the minutes.
That's a big one. I don't think I heard from Keith either.
Maybe he's running late.
Yeah.
I see Keith actually just joined, so I will bring him over.
Wonderful. And then we have 7. Or 1.
Great.
And you'll see me as a panelist, but that's just so I can share my screen.
Hi, everybody. I'm sorry. I was planning on being it, but there's a cold going through my house. And just in the last couple hours, I felt a little congested. And I thought best not to ruin everybody's February vacation plans by coming in. So, yes, no, sharing is caring, except in this instance, I think, Bud. So, but I can hear you guys loud and clear. Thank you.
Yeah, very kind. So, Keith, were you aware that you were down to take the minutes tonight? Excellent.
I am. And Jen, just because it's my, I think maybe second time doing that, is it okay if I watch the video back and take notes, right? Instead of doing it live? Does it make a difference?
Not to me.
Good enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so
In the globe.
do I still need to go down the list?
Call roll. Sure.
Okay. Cynthia?
Here.
Amelia? Here. And Keith?
Here.
And Carrie? Here. And Bud?
Here.
And I see Belinda is here. Please, thank you. Emmy is not here yet. And everybody, welcome Greg. You guys, do you want us to go around?
Got to seal up approval.
Each person needs to say they're
here.
Yeah. I'm saying to Greg, would it be helpful for you, for us to go around one more time to say our names?
Sure, that's all right.
Yes, sure. I am Jen. Amelia.
Cynthia.
And Emily, I'm staff filling in.
Carrie. Belinda.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Greg. Nice to see you. Welcome to the committee. I'm excited to have you.
Thank you.
What's your last name?
Done.
D-U-N-N?
Yeah, choice. Yeah.
Okay, so it looks like there is not anybody for public comment. Was anybody made aware of anybody trying to come make any kind of public comment tonight? Okay, then let's move on to the January minutes. Thank you, Cynthia, for drafting them up. Is there anything anybody wants to change or add?
I had, well, Marlene sent me something and I had something that I'd made as a mistake, but I don't know if Tina got anything else.
She did not let me know that she did.
Yeah, so this is an important difference to Marlene when we were in the section about at my neighbor's table.
With the new speaker?
No, that wasn't known at the time of the minute, so that can't be in there. It's under the what's happening in Needham, that the bomb threat that happened in November at Temple Festival. I wrote during the service, at least during the religious education program. And I did send that.
Did you know already?
Yeah. And then the other thing is I pressed the wrong key describing the multicultural festival that Emmy said that there's a community action project group that's out of the Boston program that they have at the school, and it's 7 kids, not a little and sign. That's the other end of it.
I move that the minutes be accepted as correct.
Okay, I second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Moving on. Unfortunately, because neither Tina, nor Marlene were available tonight, they decided to postpone the conversation about the complaints process. And so the next thing up is the community conversations on race.
You want to start, Cindy? Okay. There's almost enough for people here. If you can.
Sure. Just slide them
Oh,
across.
there should be about 6.
Oh, okay.
That's what it's being done.
That's the one.
Well, I sent one to Keith. Did you get this? I sent it to you. If you look at your,
I'll take a look right now, Cynthia. Thank you.
okay, since you're doing.
Oh, yes, I see it. Yep, got it. Thank you.
Charge is the charge with that. The charge is the second page. So maybe we can look at the second page. So just to remind people that this initiative came up as a result of events that were of hatred and discriminatory actions toward children in the school system last spring, many of whom were Asian descent, and then that we got involved and a lot of community groups got involved. 2 things came out of that last, what was the date that we had the meeting at the library? Sometime in the fall for the superintendent. At any rate, there was a desire to relook at, don't anybody be sick from me. That we wanted to look at, and this is the Chinese Friends of Needham that brought it to us, but it represents other groups in town too, who experienced acts of hatred and discrimination, not just in the schools, but in the community, that there was a desire to look at the policies of the school system. And there's a subgroup that Tina and who else is in the subgroup? Keith. You and Keith, okay. And we had a report about that and the direction that's going in, I think, is in terms of not trying to change the policies, but looking at the implementation of them between schools. The other area was a recognition that it's not just a school problem, that the community and the adults, all of us are involved with things, attitudes and actions that make it harder for adults and children. So that area was taken on by the town. And in the first part of the charge, it shows you how it fits with the select board. That's actually the select board goals, which are adopted every year. To go back to the first page, one of the goals is to identify ways to institutionalize community conversations around race, diversity, equity, and inclusion, to build relationships and a stronger understanding of different perspectives and lived experiences. Maybe I'll continue on. As you know, the Needham Public Schools, like all school districts, grapples with incidents of bias and hate based on a person's identity. The town recognizes that our schools alone cannot prevent these incidents, as it requires sustained and broad community-wide efforts to reduce identity-based harms. So with Katie King as the coordinator, then the town is taking ownership of this part of the response. And the role of the Human Rights Committee, and Amelia and I volunteered to, part of that is to work with the town to help conceptualize how to do this and to help with the implementation. So we've had several meetings with Katie, and in the last meeting, we decided that we were ready to go forward with inviting a group to come together to plan how to respond in terms of how to do conversations on race, knowing that it's not a 1 or 2 things and it's done, but it's a step in the direction of acknowledging the importance of this and doing something that hopefully will make a difference. So, the group charge, this is on the second page, is to plan a community event that facilitates an open dialogue around understanding incidents and impact of acts of hate in the schools, and to engage the broader Needham community in teaching each other, young and old, how to prevent incidents in the future. Two major groups that are important as part of this planning process. One is the school department, and so Katie King had been in contact with Superintendent Dan Gutekamp, who felt that it was most helpful to have the focus of this particular work be on with the community, with the input from the school, but we aren't trying to change what the schools do. We're trying to build on what they know, on what they're seeing, and to involve the community. So the other group that's been very important is the Chinese Friends of Needham. So she's been in consultation with Dennis Zhang, who was the president or coordinator of that group. We identified some members of the community to invite and have heard back so far. Chinese Friends of Needham has a representative, Needham Resilience Network. We haven't heard back from them, but I know that they're planning to be part of it. Needham Diversity Initiative, a representative from the Clergy Association, Reverend Sandra Bonnet Kim, who herself is a Korean American and is very one of the clergy who's the leader in the town and is very knowledgeable personally and in terms of her life experience to be part of helping us with this process. And Renaz Mala, who a former member of Human Rights Committee, who often is the person people turn to when they have a situation that they want assistance with. She was the one who I think first brought this to our attention. Then they hoped to have a select board member, and they said to be chosen after the spring election. They've invited Liz Lee, who we sometimes see here from the school committee, and expect that the superintendent will either be there himself or designate a representative. And we got bold. Instead of asking people what time is good for you, we chose time. And March 5th at 4 o'clock on Zoom. So,
and members invited 10, including Cynthia and I, have responded positively. So I think we'll probably get most of it. And also, a lot of the foundation for this was laid at that meeting that we had before the holidays. Remember, I think it was here with when Dan came and
that was at the library.
Was it at the library? I can't
yeah, and
remember.
they presented things about their policies. Yeah.
And I think a lot of the people that we chose or that we recommended were at that meeting. So a lot of people are invested in this. And I think what we want to keep reminding people of is that the school is part of the community. It's not the community. So we're really expanding away from we're starting at the school or we're connecting to the school. That's how this all started, but we're really reaching out to determine how can we deal with this within the broader community.
And we have another planning meeting with
But also not everyone in the community center gets to the public school, so it's really important to have the entire community involved.
Right, right. And we have another planning meeting with Katie before this November.
And I
March
think
15th.
We have to clarify that next week. I think Cynthia and I will be the facilitators for the meeting.
Yeah,
That's how we originally volunteered for that. I hope there's not too much more.
But we've done a lot of the planning with Katie, but she's gone ahead with the.
And we've done some
Well,
research
yeah.
about what other communities are doing, and I went on the internet and I did not find one community where the school and the community joined forces to address this topic. Cindy had a great idea, and I haven't done this yet, which I will follow up on, is contact the Massachusetts Coalition for Human Rights and reach out to them and see if any other communities have done something like this, and we might be able to get some
Yeah, they welcome people to just even put something out on the email. I think I was involved with that one time something about maybe Indigenous Peoples' Day.
But if you have, those of you who have served on committees, if you have any tips, like we're using the cops and community as a model.
Is this one gonna be just like a one night event?
I don't think we've decided. I think we're thinking small. I mean, this is late in the year.
Mhm.
So I think the last conversation Katie and Cynthia and I had was, let's start small and begin there and then plan one event and then see where that goes. I think it's important to get the input from all of these people.
Yeah, so this is a group that, well, we know with the cops and community, they did a lot of the work within that group of interactions and what seemed okay to each party to do was a lot of the learning that happened. I think that's less likely to be the case here, so that we can probably go ahead to have at least one event. Not saying that that's it, but just one event to begin with. And then pulling these aren't all the people who are concerned or affected by these issues, just to pull some people together to help us get started.
And we hope to have this by June, before
Right.
June. So that's why we're thinking about one event and see what happens.
And if when we get together, people say that's a waste of time or whatever, then no. It's having something in mind to propose, but then here using the group for the feedback.
And the people have responded, were very enthusiastic about serving on the committee, so.
Which is unusual, so I think that people realize this is important.
They actually thanked us for inviting them.
Nice.
Cynthia and Amelia, do you mind if I just ask? So is this going to be an event like geared towards, I know it says teaching young and old. Would it be, is that what you guys have you talked about? You know, is it going to be geared towards entire families or adults? Because I can imagine it's two separate ways to like approach it probably, right?
So that's one of the things that can come up in the discussion.
Right.
That's a good point.
But we want to go beyond the school and the parents.
Right.
So
Right.
Is there anybody from the senior center that would be? Like I am struck by young and old. And like,
See, there are many people who aren't in this planning group, but it would be important to involve whenever we have an event in mind. And then as we go along there, we may say, oh, this is a group we totally didn't think of who needs to be at the planning table, not just at the being involved.
But to Jen's point, I mean, the elderly is an important part of the needed population. And if we're talking about these issues, you know, regarding race, possibly, you know, it's, you know, you're running the show on this, but possibly reaching out and seeing if there's someone,
Yeah.
you know, that represents the senior population or was involved in the senior population.
There's some of us who are pushing.
Well, I
out
understand
there.
that.
Okay.
Cynthia, I didn't notice.
And there's North Hill also.
Right. Which would also be an interesting.
Mhm, mhm.
Just like you brought up about
It's
the
pretty
private.
stratified there.
Well, I know the people through NDI who are part of their diversity group. They have a number of subgroups.
One thing I learned is we visited a friend of ours that just moved to North Hill, is the number of speakers that they have come in are just amazing at one spectrum. So we could include them as a group.
That's a good-
Might be a separate even lecture or conversation.
Because I don't know if the town can finance, well, they did for the cops and community, didn't they weren't the guest speakers given an honorarium?
Yeah, we did talk about that if we come up with
we were, but now that you say that, I can't think of. Did
The person
NDI?
at the last was a friend, I think someone said was a friend of John Schlittler.
yeah, Katie
So
said
we
that they can come up with honorariums. They can't come up with speakers who want $5,000 or something, but involving people from North Hill and through the Council on Aging is really important, and I'm in some other groups where we've considered that and been told they don't like to do evening meetings, and, you know, there are various, each group has the barriers for participation as well as, yeah, so we need to think about that. And like the police department, I think, has done the best job of reaching a diverse population in our community with, was it in the spring or the fall when you had the pizza and or the open
The
house?
open house.
Was that in
yeah.
the fall?
Yeah,
And it was
very rainy
raining,
day.
but people and they had the tour of the station, they got to see people in person, like the chief and Belinda, and they had the,
Candy, pizza, we had drones up in the air. Yeah, we had a lot.
but it was a very diverse group. And lots of families with kids, and there are people who seem to know how to do it.
They came for Rocket, not us.
So we have to think about that, maybe we borrow Rocket.
But there was another, a session where there was this sense of connection when the officers came and sat at the tables.
Oh, you're talking about the cops and community.
Cops and
Right.
community,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that was
We
really.
do a lot with reaching out to the community. I think it was really important to sit at a table. There were several, actually, there were two at our table. But there were like 7 or 8 tables.
Yeah, there were quite a few there.
And we
Yeah.
really had, it was informal, it was casual, but there was a lot of information was exchanged, and I think people's impressions changed a great deal.
Yeah, I think that
Table.
Yeah. When I look at things on the Needham Facebook page, I see more times where people are talking about times that police and other community outreach people are doing things that people appreciate, and then I see other people chiming in, yeah, we can always count on this. So it is, I think there's been a shift in some of the, or else they got kicked off by the moderator.
I don't think overall Needham has ever not liked us. And
But
Needham
there
has
has
always been
been-
supportive all through the years.
Overall, but there have been
That
pockets,
publicity, people were still there.
yeah, there have been pockets of very negative kinds of things, people who would seem to be negative about a lot of things. you
Good
know.
prevails.
I think the biggest challenge, though, will be to not just reach the choir.
That's Yeah.
always the challenge. This
But
has
the-
to be, these folks have to be part of the conversation, and if they don't come,
Yeah, or maybe you start with some of the choir and convert them to do things differently, to reaching out.
I think reaching out, that's really important.
So we know Bud's very good at it.
but if you have any suggestions, and these are interesting,
Should reach out to housing too.
Yeah,
and Rena's will really be a good connection. She's on the planning committee, so, yeah, definitely.
Wow, well, thanks, you guys.
We'll keep you posted.
so there isn't anything we need to approve or whatever, we're already sort of underway and with the town leading us, and I think if we think of several years ago, when we were trying to figure out where we fit, here's an example of a really close connection.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And I have to say, it's been great working with Katie. She really is an incredible resource.
Yeah.
And she's doing a lot of the work. All her other responsibilities, but
Yeah, and we do some things and bring them up, and then she kind of pulls them together, so.
Yeah, that's the lady that needs to know about a lot of things. Great. Does anybody have any other questions or feedback right now? Okay.
So the sample thing I sent out was just one of the letters, those to Liz, who's the school committee member, but
I was curious, you mentioned that something Sparkfeld is at a school,
yeah.
and is everybody, I'm not sure what that was.
Yeah, but there's the statement that the Human Rights Committee made
There was an incident in the school.
There was an
where-
incident.
where
Yeah.
Or a number of them.
Student, Asian student was bullied and.
Bullied, yeah.
and,
And the parents, actually, the parents, didn't know how to approach or were intimidated by going to the powers that be in the school, the principal, the superintendent. And they just
Yeah.
became frustrated and left the community.
Oh, they left the school.
Yes, they left Needham. And this is in the first case. Many years ago, we had an incident
That's terrible.
where the family
Yeah.
just picked up and went to Newton.
And
Wow.
this case
Wow.
was different in that somehow or other, do you know the Chinese Friends of Needham? So really large.
Yeah.
Large group where mostly people hear about it in terms of their sustaining the culture, the Chinese culture, so that
Mm.
like with their Chinese Lunar New Year, so, and probably language classes and all, so people can continue to have that heritage that
Mm.
ordinarily there isn't an organized response when something happens, but for some reason, people were connected so that as an organization, they
Yeah.
replied and said that they felt that there wasn't enough being done by the schools, and
Okay,
the school department set up a meeting just for the parents in that particular elementary school, and a few people from the outside were invited. I think Tina was one of the people who was there, and then they went to the clergy association, happened to have been there when they were there.
Yeah.
And then they came to the Human Rights Committee and to various other groups. And this was not characteristic. And Dennis Sung, who's president, said one of the things that's difficult in these situations is that it's hard for people to speak up. And for some groups, it's harder than others. And and that he wasn't sure whether the school department was going to do anything. So that's what we've heard from parents, that they gave up and left. In this case, the people didn't leave, and it's part of the group, and that we have been able
to address this.
to work.
so
work
they
with
stayed
them.
in Needham and then.
Yeah, well, a lot of people. I don't know
Yeah.
how much the
Yeah,
children who were actually targeted in that particular,
so they were
Listen.
targeted by other children.
Yes.
It was bullying
which
from other
goes on
children.
all the time,
Yeah,
but sometimes it gets to be worse.
yeah, yeah,
And it was more challenging because it was young children.
yeah. Oh, were they in elementary school?
Elementary.
They were, yeah.
And then the privacy issues as to how much the school can divulge,
Oh,
how
yeah.
much the family was willing to divulge, so the Human Rights Committee got very involved in
Yeah,
just kind
and
of
so,
settling
Yeah.
the waters and also opening up the doors of communication.
so one of the things that the Human Rights Committee did was to set up this meeting of the Human Rights Committee that's open. They're all open, but more open, with inviting the superintendent, and he brought other people from the school department. And he went through what all the policies are about
Yeah.
dealing with bullying and acts of hatred and discrimination.
Yeah,
And there were several members from the Chinese Friends of Needham were there. So following that presentation, there was some really good discussion, things brought up, and then in real time, a person could say, you're right, one of the things that we're not very good about is communicating
Mhm.
with the families, and that each school has its handbook, and that there isn't a commonality
Mm.
always. Maybe some of the language is the same, but the way it gets implemented. So a number of things that were perhaps new,
yeah,
that were problems,
Yeah.
that might make a difference, got brought up.
But it turned out to be a very constructive process because the Chinese Friends of Needham called the attention of the superintendent to documents in Newton,
okay,
which clearly were well documented and were clearly, were very clear about procedures and how parents could get involved. And so, and whereas that was not the case, and Dan
So-
Butik has.
they actually moved to Newton with the intention of knowing that it was a better system.
I don't know,
We don't
we
know.
heard this
We don't
from
know.
other
We don't know
sources.
where
We don't
people
know,
live.
and we don't know the family.
Or
I
they felt
don't.
safer there, yeah,
It's just some people from the Chinese Friends of Needham knew about what was going on in Newton.
yeah,
And it isn't that the policies were different, it's how they did the communication.
And how the various
Documentation.
principals of the schools handled situations where we felt, when we expressed to the superintendent,
Yeah.
It should be absolutely the same in every school.
Mhm.
So-
Their handbook can be different because they have different dismissal times and things like that, but the way things are handled should
Yeah,
be.
so that's
Across the
what,
board.
one of the, that's the group, it's not being reported on now, but, if you look at the minutes from last month, there's just a short mention of what that group is doing, which, Jen and Keith
Yeah,
are part of, so we picked up on things that rose up from that.
Okay.
That it's more than just the school, the kids are coming in with what they've heard and lived with.
yeah, I mean, that's
In the
my,
media, in their families, and
that's my thought process, right, that these kids are kids, right, so they're getting it from home, probably. right?
Exactly, they
So
bring
then-
it from the community.
So
And-
the community, where is that, where are they going? Where are those parents? Is there anything in common with those parents where they meet? Because maybe these groups are fantastic, but what I see from these groups is all these people care. And I think everybody here cares and has a big heart, but is there a different group
Yeah,
that
so-
isn't usually involved? I don't
So
know.
the idea.
It's funny.
of the-
You know,
Oh, sorry, Greg. I was just only just to chirp in because I had the same thought. I mean, we love to, this event I know would be fantastic, and it will draw the people who feel kind of the same way, like preaching to the choir. I think the trick is to try to provide some way to hear from the people who don't exactly think like us. And I hate to say it, but it's probably one of the best. I mean, if the idea is to gather information from people who have these kind of residual, I don't know, tendencies, right? And
Yeah.
in an anonymous way to collect that information or to solicit it is probably what it's going to take, right? People generally don't feel, open or free enough to share these kind of things that they have in the back of their heads unless it's anonymous. So maybe there is some anonymous way to allow to get the conversations going, right, to hear the things that we want to really address.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
That's the kind of thing that we will talk about with this group. How do we reach it isn't just it isn't pulling together 5 or 6 groups who then get their membership to come. It's pulling people together who care about doing what you said. And finding ways to reach out, and
Yeah.
we can't get it all done with one
oh, of course,
program.
of course not, yeah.
But I think
So-
it's good to be reminded that that is one of the most important things.
Yeah,
Because I remember the superintendent saying, we have the kids only so many hours a day. They go home, they have the houses of worship that
Oh,
they
yeah.
attend, and there are all kinds of influences that these
definitely,
kids
yeah.
hear things, social media, all
Mhm.
kinds of things. So you may even want to tie in something with social media and how social media can
Oh,
play
Yeah.
into, play
yeah,
into
social
this.
media, and yeah,
Yeah, and Belinda, you're in touch with all kinds of folks around town, and influences that kids are experiencing. Probably.
I think a
Some
lot of
good,
it
and
is
some not so good.
social media and what they have on TV. It's just,
are there any,
Music too, right? I mean, music is a big one. If you're not quick on the fast forward button, sometimes you listen to something and words are being said that you don't want to be repeated. I mean, that's how it goes.
Yeah,
Good.
so we welcome any ideas
oh, yeah,
from
oh, I was,
people.
yeah, I was curious, so this is around race, so are there any other, ethnicity groups?
Yeah,
that
I
groups
think,
like,
didn't we
like
mention that
Italian
somewhere?
Americans, or, I don't know,
Yeah,
or any other groups?
we
African
can't have
American
all the
or-
groups at the table. We have a few, like
Yeah.
we
But
have.
it's not just race, it is ethnicity and,
Ethnicities, and, well, the thing is, I
but
think
I mean,
that-
that's something for us to decide, but
Yeah.
I'm sure
And it's
it will.
socioeconomic
I think the
differences.
toughest thing about this is that if people have to be involved. And if someone's not involved, they feel like they're the outsider,
Mhm.
and that just builds hate, right? Cause then they feel like they're the outsider and they have this big power, the man that's pushing against them, and then they're the little outsiders here and they grow separate,
Mhm.
right?
And
It's
they
like,
dig in deeper.
yeah, and then they dig in deeper and they hate more, and then they go tell their kids, these people don't even invite us to that thing, and then the kid's gonna go in school and do something else, you know what I mean?
So
So
one,
it's very
so
hard
one
to
group that
be inclusive.
is represented, and now we don't know whether Nicole Argo or Beth Heinels will be part of it, is they've done a tremendous amount of work on belonging and identity, and there's been a survey of different
How
throughout the
people feel.
community, and their responses
Yeah.
from different groups. So we do have some sense of our community and what kind of things, what
Okay, yeah,
make people feel not a part of the community.
And Greg, that's the Needham Resilience Network. That's the
Okay.
name of that group.
Is that okay?
So
Yeah.
we should share some
yeah.
things with you,
Yeah, I'm
what they've
just
done
learning
in
here,
the.
so this is my first steps of it.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Thank
but
you
you're,
for sharing. Thank you.
you're raising all
Yeah.
the right questions. Unfortunately, we have a little bit of sense of that.
Yeah.
And, several of the people who are going to be part of the planning group have been part of that group.
Yeah,
And it's probably the most diverse group that was ever put together in Needham, about 30 people. That includes town leaders like the chief of police, the town manager, heads of, well, the superintendent, heads of different groups like the Needham Community Council, Public Health Department, but also representatives of identity groups, the Muslim families of Needham, the Indian families, Chinese friends of Needham, people of color, our wonderful select board member, Marcus Nelson, who's the first person of color to be on the select board, and people from Netco program. So it's been a very diverse group and I'm part of it, as we look at issues in Needham, and it's going to be going forward, and we'll continue to work closely with Human Rights Committee. And they are very, so all of the connections that have been built over 2 years with that group, we can tap into as we want to reach out to a variety.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm curious too, the parents, so if the parents, we wouldn't be able to get this kind of data, but those parents, do they have anything in common? So like if they're bullying cases, then the school would have that data. And the school may know that, like, what is in common with all these parents, and is there any intersecting things that they go to? And that's gonna be the group to go after.
Well, the guidance counselors and principals, I think, know that.
And it could be like sports. It could be,
The Saturday
Yeah.
morning, at the Y.
exactly, it could be something like that where they all conjugate or
Oh,
something.
the director of the Y is part of it.
Yeah.
You've got so many good ideas. I can see all the committees you're gonna be
Oh,
on.
sounds good.
Is there anything else on that? Keith, do you want to talk about the multicultural festival?
Sure, yeah, I can give a little update. So I'm actually scheduled to meet with I met with Renaz once already and talked just like a big picture overview of what it took to get the planning, to get the event up and running last year, some of the potential pitfalls, the things that she wishes she could have done differently. She was incredibly helpful, and I was able to connect with Zanat and Bill Paulson as well. So we're gonna have a quick Zoom tomorrow, which I didn't mean to. I don't know if it was Cynthia and Amelia. I sent an invite by accident, but it was a separate thread that I was on. So we're gonna.
I didn't even get that.
Oh, okay. Maybe it was Amelia. I think so, right? Yeah. So, anyways, we're gonna have just a quick
Just
Zoom
meet her.
tomorrow. Yeah, we're gonna go over, like I said, kind of the ways that we think we can grow it. And I was able to make initial contact with the principal at the high school. So trying to hone in on, their willingness to allow us to potentially host there, what dates, what time of year might work.
What high school?
Needham High.
Needham High.
I mean, what
That's right,
school?
Amelia.
It's the high school.
Yes.
Okay.
That's right,
that's what
Amelia.
we
Yeah,
said.
Go on
I think the
bigger
idea
space.
is.
Oh, right,
I'm sorry,
right, right.
but good.
I
Yeah,
I said,
I
because we
think
want
the
as big
idea
a
is-
space as
Yeah.
possible.
as big a space as possible. And just as an update too, so I went to Newman's Multicultural Fair Sunday that just passed, and it was amazing. Yeah, it was fantastic. I was just texting with the PTC president here to ask the number of tables they had, but it had to be at least 25, 30 tables, all in the cafeteria. They had some Irish step dancing at the beginning of it. It was right in line with what the town's one was. And I thought the nicest part was I think out of everybody I spoke to, there were no attendants to the town's one last year. So these were all, they, kind of independently set up. And when I told them that we were trying to go, bigger and broader this year, they were thrilled, and they were really excited to potentially be a part of it. And so I have, another 20 contact emails. So I'm just going to try to build as big as we can, and then try to find the place and the time to be able to host this. So we don't have many more details. Besides that, I mean, I think, realistically, you will need a chunk of time to really get this thing right. And so I'm not sure if we're going to be aiming for the end of this school year or the beginning of next school year. I definitely don't want to miss the entire year, but I also think that, if we want to try to build this into an annual tradition, which I think is what the town wants, what the town needs, you don't want to make sure that we get it right.
Yep.
So yeah, so I figured we'll start with the, kind of the core group that put on the event last year, and then branch out. I know there are lots of different groups that had a huge helping hand, NDI and NRN, kind of all the groups that were just listed on the previous topic. And so to try to bring them all in and, to make it an event that, we can all really be proud of, and it's all inclusive, and, we'll have, some kind of performance. I mean, like I said, I don't know if with Greg, if you were able to go to the one last year, but it was an amazing event. And it was really it was the highlight of the town activities that I did, that I attended all year by far. There was nothing that was even close to it. So the idea that we can do it again and do it bigger and include more people, I'm thrilled about it.
Yay.
Keith, in terms of the date, if you're thinking about beginning of the school year, you don't want to get too close to the Diversity Summit, which is a big event
In November.
I remember you talking about that too, Amelia. Yeah, I think, like I said, I made initial contact with the principal, so I want to kind of hear what he has to say. If they have a preference, what time of year is kind of best. And my real thought is to try to, we want to do this annual. I think it's so important to be able to pick these dates and then continue them year after year, so people know, so they're on their calendar mentally, and they know this time of year is Multicultural Festival for the town. I wish we could squeeze it in for March, but it's just probably not feasible. Yeah, exactly. So we need at least, though Rena's was amazing. I mean, she has loads of good information and a plan kind of already. So I think, the amount of time that we'll need will be much less than last year, or the 6-month period that you all put this thing on. It'll be much more condensed. We have kind of a blueprint now. So really it's just about, getting as many cultures, represented, and having enough space so people can kind of, spread out a little bit.
I also want to bring to your attention, you need to be sensitive to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, which are, I just looked at the dates. It's October 2nd is when the Jewish New Year started. So
that's great, but thank you. Yeah, I was thinking, school starts towards the end of August. So, I mean, I think we're all kind of used to things ramping up in September. So that seemed and we had some suggestions, and I was just having some brief chats with folks, and they were saying, well, maybe we could do it outside at the town common and all this, but I'm so scared of weather, right? I'm born and raised Bostonian, so we don't trust the weather in New England, do we? So I think we have to, to put the effort towards it. That's right. Exactly.
Out there yet?
That's right. Exactly, Cynthia. Yeah. So I think inside high school, something like that will be where we should focus our attention. Yes.
Keith, when last month, Emmy said that their community action project, which is part of the Boston program, that they are wanting to do work in the area of multicultural diversity. And she was hoping there could be some way to connect. I don't know if you had a chance to follow up with them.
And it's just that they missed just the first part of what you said. It got gobbled for 1 second.
Emmy Ward last month.
Oh, yes, that's right.
That group of 7, and that they're really, they need to get their project done before the end of the school year, and whether whether there's some way they could be part of this, whether they're part of the planning. It probably isn't going to happen before the end of the school year, but if it is, that they could be part of it.
That's a good point. Yes, no, it's funny. I was just looking at the last meeting's minutes as we were reviewing them, and I saw that we said that. And you're right. If it's the beginning of the next school year, we're going to miss out on that group.
But that could help with the planning, Keith.
Yes, yeah, right, exactly, bud. And it will be town-wide too, right? So I guess maybe it won't. We're including not just students, right? It's everybody. So maybe at the end of the beginning of next school year won't be. They'll still be able to attend. So yeah, I'll make sure that I pull them in, Cynthia. Thanks for the reminder.
They're all seniors. This is this particular project.
Yep.
So at least to touch bases with her, since they're ripe and ready to do things, and if there was a way of connecting.
That's great. Thank you for the reminder, Cynthia. I'm gonna reach out to her right now.
Thanks, Keith.
I think we have a good leader.
I think we do. I wish he was a little more enthusiastic though.
This is, I know, but I said to her, I met so many wonderful people at that Newman event, and it really did it's like when you get around people that are excited to share their culture and to learn about other cultures.
Yeah.
I mean, it really gets me going. And I think it was obvious. I mean, the smiles on the children's faces and the adults, they were just so, there's so much pride in the room. It was really, it's fantastic. I think it's a wonderful thing. So.
Yay.
Yeah. If I could help in any way, Keith, let me know, please.
Awesome, Greg. Good stuff. Thank you. That'll be awesome. Great. Fantastic.
Do you have kids in elementary?
No, well, I have 3 little kids.
They're not there
Do a
yet.
town
They're all-
mosaic.
Yeah, they could do a town mosaic, yeah. To my wife's a mosaic artist. Yeah.
Oh,
And she puts
Yeah.
together groups and goes to groups and have them each do a tile.
Yeah.
It's
She
amazing.
specializes
The
in
work she
community
does.
mosaic, so yeah.
oh, wow.
The biggest one.
Greg, I didn't know that.
Yeah, the biggest one she did was at Temple Beth Shalom. It was 600 people and everybody made a leaf. And then the leaf she brought together into a huge tree.
I heard about this.
And
I
it's
heard
a
about
5
this.
by 5 tree in the lobby of Temple Beth Shalom. Yeah.
I must
But
have
she's done a
gone,
lot of them. She does.
we must
she
have
does
gone
them all
by it
over.
the other night.
And she's going to Charlottesville next week and she goes to DC in a month and she does them everywhere. Yeah,
That's awesome.
it's pretty cool.
Sounds like you
Right.
have a
Yeah.
common spirit of things
Yeah,
that you want to
It's
do.
fun. Yeah, it's true. I never thought about that, but yeah, Bud's right. That could be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine if the whole town made a tree together. And that hung in the
Awesome.
town hall and you walk in and you're like, oh, that's fine. Kind of
And that
connects
could,
you.
it could be part of the multicultural festival.
That could be,
Yeah.
yeah, that could be interesting, yeah.
Great idea.
Send Kate and Katie over the top.
Okay, Keith, is that all you wanted to say on that?
That's it. Yep. Thank you, Jen.
Amelia? Is there something?
Yeah, this is quick. I went to a planning meeting for the Massachusetts Coalition of Human Rights. And they sent an email around indicating that there were a large number of communities that face great challenges writing a statement after the Middle East crisis began. And I went to that planning meeting and there were about 10 people at the meeting from mostly from the eastern part of Massachusetts. Every single one of them struggled with writing a statement and it took them, some of them, a month before they could put something together. And even that was not what they wanted, but they really were struggling with how to, and things were unfolding. So the question they had to answer is, who do we speak for? And that is the biggest challenge that you have in writing a statement. And Bud and Marlene and I were on the planning committee and we put together a statement. And what we decided to do, because it was so difficult to speak for everyone, and yet at the same time challenge the violation of human rights without singling out people. So what we decided to do is look at our mission statement and what our role is in the community, and that is to advocate for all members of the community. So we focused on that and I will share the mission statement. I won't go into that. But anyway, this was a wonderful meeting. I'm not gonna be on this planning committee, but they will be getting together. And they're putting together a toolkit that will be
Wow.
available for all of the human rights commissions and committees in Massachusetts. And one of the things they wanted to do is to seek feedback from other people, not just from people in their community, but from other communities about the statement that they are putting together. And that doesn't exist. If you go to a meeting, a few people might show up, but you don't get the feedback you want. And they mentioned a group called Dignity Alliance, which is run by people from very diverse backgrounds, all different points of view. And you submit statements to them and they give feedback.
Wow.
So, and this is, I haven't had a chance to look that up, but that is something that they're going to look at. And that they're just at the early stages and they didn't publish yet the minutes of the meeting. So as soon as I get some information about the toolkit, I will share it with you. Some of the communities were so intimidated by offending others in the community, they didn't make any statement at all. And others just had a general statement that they were not happy with, and it really didn't do any good at all. It didn't reach their goal or objective and consoling the people who were affected by what was happening, especially personally affected. So I will keep you posted. Let me think. And one of the things they said, the person running the meeting said that the statements you make, you have to think about who are you speaking to, not for. And that is a critical point. But anyway, it's a very complicated task, and there will be more incidents, I think.
Sadly.
Unfortunately, so that's where we are at this point. We did, I don't think we've we asked the community in our statement to contact us if they wanted any feedback or any support. And to my knowledge, we didn't receive anything via the human rights media source or email source.
I think we heard back from the person who wanted us to take a particular statement.
Oh, yes, there was
That
one
he
person.
Oh, yes,
It
yes,
was
we did have.
was strong.
He wished
Yeah.
he could have been involved with changing the one that we approved, and he said that he wasn't part of the committee, so that wasn't.
Mhm.
We heard his input,
Right.
but then we came up with a statement.
But that was also a challenging, I don't know if we handled that well. You know, I think we want to reflect on that again. And think about, I mean, we write our own statements. We don't just endorse another person's statement. We might share it maybe through other way. Anyway, we have to figure out how to deal with that. It's going to happen again.
And there's, and I've shared with this group what the Interfaith Clergy Association came up with, which included people from the various faiths. We don't have them all represented in town, but there were 3 different temples or synagogues had representation, and we had a Muslim representative and people from various Christian denominations, Unitarians, Quakers, and there was an interesting process that I liked, that everybody first submitted any statements or prayers or thoughts that they had. And there was this huge document. And then everybody went back over it, went back through it and made their comments like, I can't agree with this part of it, or that sounds really good. So then one person acted like a moderator and went back through all of these comments, and anything that any person really disagreed with was out. But then what came forth were a variety of statements that everybody could respect, even though they might not have agreed. And that's what was then put together as the vigil. And I thought that was an interesting way. Prior to that, we had one meeting where we went around 3 times and each person said something about how the situation in the Middle East affected them personally, then how it affected their congregation, and then the third part was something in the way of like a statement or prayer that they wanted to have. And that was also really helpful, because instead of putting out a statement, it started with each person saying where they were coming from. So and then one of the people somewhere wrote all of that down so everybody could read each other's statement. So there's a lot of, you probably have been involved in some of those kind of things. There are ways of doing things to get people to say what their point of view is before they start saying, I don't like this or I don't like that.
Amelia, were they talking about a statement about this particular set of events being difficult, or just the general difficulty in trying to make a statement on any topic?
Well, it mostly focused on this, that was the starting point, I think. And just to summarize, they're putting together a toolkit for public responses to global human rights issues. So they're going beyond.
Okay.
And there are 5 components. The first is public statements, and that's what we talked about at this meeting. Next would be public discussion, which human rights committees or commissions lead. Public events, media literacy, and then the 5th component of this toolkit will be resources on human rights fundamentals. If they complete this, I think it will be an incredible resource. So I'll keep you posted as I hear more.
Okay. So just briefly, we talked a little bit last time about reaching out to the Immigration Justice Task Force about co-sponsoring some kind of educational event for the community, broadly speaking, to talk about the crisis at the border. And I have gone back and forth a couple of times with Jerry Rovner, and we're supposed to talk again next week about putting something together. What I wanted to know from you all is that, are there particular questions or directions that you would like to see out of an educational event? Are there questions that you think would be good for us to focus on for something like that? If anybody has any ideas.
Is it the border crisis overall or those seeking asylum?
That's a good question. And I will be curious to see what Jerry thinks about that.
Okay.
Because yeah, that's his world.
Yeah.
Personally, I think that some kind of, at least laying the groundwork discussion about what asylum is and how it started and why we have it and why it's important. Whether or not, no, I guess we can't get into that, but just some kind of baseline as to like what that's about, and then talking about kind of what it looked like then compared to what it looks like now, and what is happening. I think that one of the things that Jerry had wanted to wait for was to see how things were going to shake out in Congress, which seems like
Wait a long time.
we don't really know what's going to happen there. But I think that those are some interesting questions. I think there's also, Massachusetts is in such a state of crisis right now with the folks that have come to Massachusetts. Like, I feel like that's a whole nother kind of layer or avenue to bring this discussion into, if people are watching the news and trying to figure out what, the migrant crisis, what are, the shelters and where people are going and if they're getting jobs and all that. Like, I think that could be another completely interesting story, but our conversation, but I don't know, maybe it's too big. So I wanted to get a sense from you guys what you think would be most interesting.
Jen, can I ask you? Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to jump in, but I'd love to hear the kind of the specific examples, because sometimes it's, when you look at these things broadly, right, it's hard to be really connected, I think, for some people. And so when you can hone in on it, on a family's journey, right, like what it actually looks like, it helps you identify, I think, more with the struggles that, that these people are going through. So I think that would be something important if we were, trying to coordinate an effort and learning more about it, that, as personalized as you can make it to hear someone's story. I think that's what really draws somebody in.
And possibly finding someone who was quote unquote shipped to Massachusetts, who had been at the border and was sent to this area, because we have a number of people who are here and are talking about housing. I don't want people in Boston. They should send them out to Newton, to the UMass campus there.
It's kind of the newspaper, I think it was last weekend, had, I don't know if it was an editorial, it probably was an editorial of some sort, talking about the burden for housing a lot of the new migrants was falling on lower income communities.
Was that the thing Tina sent out? It was February 14th one? Or there was another, there's been quite a bit.
It was in the paper, yeah, it was in the paper.
Somebody, I think it was
Yeah.
like why isn't Wellesley doing it?
Why
Wellesley
isn't
kept getting thrown in.
Yeah,
right.
And I think told people that need them through the public health departments, through Tim McDonald, started in the fall, contacting all the different parts of our community. So if they say one of the residents in or whatever, someplace that they're gonna send 30 families, that will have a way to respond. So Tim was successful in getting Needham Community Council, so that they've got a plan.
Services as well as.
But they've got
transportation.
a plan. So if people are coming to Needham, this isn't just, oh, we'll never take them. This, as a town, and I'm really proud of a town that has already done as much as possible. So it's kind of on hold. I think that, saying what you cover, I think it will be really important to describe to people about the migrants who were here under humanitarian parole are very different than they had to go through a huge process in their country and get sponsorship and all kinds of things before they can come here, which is different than the people who have been maybe walking or taking buses, losing their lives, and some of the people along the way to try to get across the border to seek asylum, and how those regulations keep changing, and what happens to people when they get separated from their families, they're in detention. This is the Immigration Justice Task Force has been involved with thinking about these things, and one of our partner groups, the Metro West Worker Center, has direct contact with a lot of the people who have made it here over the years, or who are just arriving, who are seeking asylum. And it's tricky to have any of those people speak because they're in vulnerable situations.
Retribution.
But they're speaking to what he says, that there are sometimes people who have made it through the asylum process who can speak, or there are ways of bringing that alive. I know some of the houses of worship have been involved, and some of us were involved with the sanctuary, and there was a sanctuary in Newton, in a Newton church, and around 10 or 11 congregations here were helping support the family who was staying there.
Linen.
And then you've had people and Temple Beth Shalom and
Well, the suitcase stories thing also was part of, speaking to the same.
And speaking of, we just got a grant, the Immigration Justice Task Force, Cheryl Aguilera is heading it, has a grant to do the first part of Suitcase Stories. It's Suitcase Stories Unpacked. That will be a small one, helping people understand the process of listening to stories, and then they don't know when the date will be, but there will be another one like the one that was at Temple Beth Shalom in June of 2019, and that was fabulous.
It was that long ago?
Wow.
Yep,
Yeah,
right
that was
before.
wonderful.
It was right before.
Renee's spoke there. That's not
Yeah, I recruited her, and the man who's involved with Hungry Coyote Those were our two local Needham people. And she went on to do a lot of that, but hearing people's stories.
You know, I wonder also on a more global, how do we benefit? If you look at the need for agricultural workers in Massachusetts, Volante Farms, close to home. We need people in nursing homes. We need people in hospital settings. And the Filipino population was very successful in finding a niche for themselves in the United States, and still generation after generation, they have found careers in the medical profession. But there's, you know, to maybe look at it from that perspective, rather than just the negative or the challenges, but also how training people who are here legally and who are very motivated, very much like previous generations who came from other parts of Europe.
Yeah, the contribution.
Probably much more motivated than our population.
Many of the new businesses are by people who are new to this country.
It's interesting, I go up to Maine a lot in the summer and in the fall, and a lot of people, because of the tourist industry, have closed restaurants, the hotels have to limit the number of people that they register because they don't have enough folks to wait on them to help them in their businesses. And a lot of them are losing their professions.
Very true.
And thank you, Jen, for having that idea.
More to report out in March. Anything going on then for you? No. That's a good thing. Exactly.
Do we need to figure out the April date? I know that this date doesn't conflict with school vacation, but in April, the third Thursday is school vacation week. You could wait till next month to figure it out, or could think about it.
I thought Katie had checked that out.
Thought we did.
We checked it out for February and we're fine for February. But the 18th is indeed part of the school vacation week, isn't it? I'm looking at the wrong person. Jerry might know.
I don't know.
Because President's Day is on the 19th, isn't it?
Yeah, that's February.
That's February.
Is there anybody here tonight that would not be able to come on the 18th because it's April break?
I mean, the 21st is President's Day.
Keith, are you gonna be around?
So 18th of April, Jen, is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah. It's the third Thursday, whether that's school vacation week, we believe.
Yeah, no, I think I'm around. But my kids are still at the age where a vacation means not going on vacation because it's too much work. So yeah, we'll probably be here.
I don't know, so maybe we can just keep it that third.
Yeah, unless that's a problem for Tina, and we didn't want to know.
Yeah, of course.
And people could always do it on Zoom. So.
That's true too. Hey, I'm calling you
They're on a
from,
beach.
I'm calling you from Hawaii. Wait a minute, it's a
I
long
would be
time.
Okay, I'll make a note to Does anybody have anything else they want to discuss tonight?
I want to thank the people around the street who were able to come to the event at Best Shalom
That was
on
fun.
Sunday, which
Really,
was
really
on
interesting.
affordable housing, which is wonderful. And if people are not busy March 3rd, the meeting that they're having with all the district meetings should be very powerful.
That's at 3 o'clock in Roxbury, at the mosque.
Beautiful. And there's a bus from, I think there's gonna be a bus from Temple Beth Shalom as well as Temple Bet Elohim. for the
Oh, from
event. So
Wellesley.
if people, need a ride and want to go to that event.
And then at 4:30 is the At My Neighbor's.
Oh, is that the same day?
It is,
Yeah.
if somebody's got their roller skates.
What's the event on the third?
Very Boston, kind of rally to support affordable housing.
I didn't see any notes from Tina or Marlene. Updates about the At Our Neighbors table. Is there anything, is anybody working on that with Marlene?
Well, the moderators are going to meet next week.
So it's just that it's, I think it's gone out with the sign up. No, the flyer, and there is a new speaker because there's been a change in leadership. But it doesn't affect the overall time.
But
People should sign up.
Keith and Greg, if you haven't attended At My Neighbor's Table, they haven't had a potluck there event for a couple of years because of COVID, but it's an in-person event where people bring food and they sit at tables, and Temple Beth Shalom has hosted the event. They have a wonderful big room with round tables, which is perfect. And there are about 8 people at a table, and there's usually a guest speaker, and there's a topic, and this year it's on Amazon. And
That's for.
they have a guest speaker, and then the speaker takes about 15-20 minutes, and then people break up into small groups
Yeah.
and they
Well,
come
you're-
together.
You sit at your table where you listen to the speaker, and
Yeah.
then sometimes they go back and forth.
And
between-
Marlene was really pushing for people who are not Jewish to be at the
Yeah.
event, to really reach out to
Mhm,
the community.
mhm.
Mhm.
I'd love to go, but I belong to Temple Beth Shalom.
But that's what you're allowed.
Yeah, it sounds fantastic. And when I was getting some details of it, I said, well, I'm vegetarian, so I don't know if I'll be able to eat anything. He said, no, it's all vegetarian. I said, well, that's amazing. I said, okay,
Gee,
now you
we'll
got
have to
me.
think of another excuse.
Yes. No, it sounds great. So
Okay. Is there anything else anybody want to announce or discuss? All right.
I moved to adjourn.
A second.
50 minutes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
So do we have to ask you first or not?
You just did. We all said yes. Right?
I heard everyone say yes, so.
Was that- when it was really asked to do that?
Well, she did it last time. At any rate, we all said yes.
We all said yes.
Conrad,
Good
now
night.
you're-
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
bye, everybody. Thanks.
Bye.
Nice to see you. Bye bye. Greg, welcome again. Look forward to seeing you.
Thanks.